Hello and welcome to the Mind Renovation Nation show, brought to you by Red Maples, your go-to source for institutional style property management of small multifamily rentals. I'm your host, Nathan Bush, and each show I share with you lessons that I've learned from growing my real estate business. Imagine doubling or tripling, maybe quadrupling, who knows, 10xing all of your cash flow on your rental properties. Today, we're diving into strategies that top investors are using to maximize profits on their rentals. Don't go anywhere. On this show, I've invited Joe Rohne, a short-term rentals expert, to explore the challenges and opportunities facing small multifamily investors. We've designed this show to answer questions you have about growing your revenue in your real estate business. If you want more of these types of resources, you guys know you can head on over to my website at www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe, or make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the other resources in the show description. And if you have questions for our short-term rental expert at any time, go ahead and pop in and put those questions in the chat. We'll make sure that those get answered for you. Now, guys, you know that I would be remiss if I didn't take a second and really dive into our sponsor, Red Maples. We show small multifamily real estate investors how they can achieve double-digit returns through small multifamily real estate with institutional style property management. If you want to learn more about what that is, head on over to red-maples.com/assessment. You can scan that QR code if you're watching on the screen and get a complete comprehensive real estate portfolio assessment. That's red-maples.com/assessment. I have a favorite quote from one of my favorite movies, from the movie Pursuit of Happiness. Do you remember this scene where Chris Gardner's talking to his son and he says, "Don't you ever let someone tell you you can't do something. Not me, not anyone. You got a dream, you got to protect it." Well, today I want to remind our audience here, guys, if you got a dream, don't let anybody tell me that you can't do something. Not me, not any person that's ever been on my show. You got to protect that dream and go after that dream. Today's guest, though, oh my gosh, you guys are in for a real treat. This quote, as I was going through different historical quotes that I have used on the show before, and just in preparation of getting everything ready to share with you guys about short-term rentals today, I found this quote from Dale Carnegie, and it reminded me so much of this guest. Most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. And today's guest is no different. Today's guest is Joe Rohne. Joe's story is one of transformation, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to family. Married at a young age of 22, Joe embarked on his professional journey in corporate retail, accumulating as a district manager for Sears, the appliance store. Meanwhile, his wife was equally driven, was a student and a director at a large preschool. They shared a vision and entrepreneurial spirit that led them to take all of their savings and equity and invest it in a business, purchasing their own preschool, Teddy Bear Academy, in 2007. Today, his wife continues to run that academy successfully. Hang in there, because the story continues on. In 2013, Joe recognized the demands of this corporate retail world, taking a toll on his family life, and he made a bold decision. The decision was to quit his job and to start a lawn care company. And this offered him some flexibility, and he was actively able to participate in his children's life at this point. So he made the move. He quit his job, started the lawn care business. This allowed him to participate in cheer competitions and coach both of his daughter's softball teams for decades. Then in 2019, anticipating the eventual end of his lawn care business and his daughter's sports activities began to wind down, Joe made a transition into real estate. Armed with a real estate license and a wealth of knowledge from listening to 40 to 50 different audiobooks while being on the lawnmower, Joe dove into real estate investing. His focus shifted, though, to short-term rentals. After doing some extensive research in 2022, Joe and his wife again took their entire savings and invested in their first beach house in Panama City. This is somebody that understands how to take the appropriate risk, guys. You're going to want to listen to his entire story. By January of 2023, he began co-hosting a cabin in Branson, Missouri, and soon to expand his co-hosting business to 6 beach houses in Panama City, achieving over 6 figures in profit within a year. Joe aims to add a few more properties to his portfolio and cap it there. Although this journey of Joe's passion for coaching and mentoring shone brightly, he founded his own mastermind group. This was after Joe took Bill Feith's boot camp, an accelerator program. And so he started his own mastermind group after learning how to do these short-term rentals. In early 2023, he launched a structured co-hosting training program, helping participants to successfully acquire properties to co-host. So Joe's dedication extends beyond his business. His eldest daughter is a sophomore at Mizzou, and his youngest daughter will be a junior in St. Dominic. Everything Joe and his wife do is for their daughters, ensuring they can start their careers for free from college debt. That's an incredibly noble endeavor. I love that about Joe. The flexibility of co-hosting has always allowed Joe's family to travel extensively, enriching their lives and creating lasting memories. Joe's journey is a testament to the power of determination, adaptability, and the pursuit of passion. His success in co-hosting in real estate is not just a professional achievement, but a fulfillment of a family-oriented dream. Welcome to the show, Joe. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing today?
I'm super pumped and happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and be on the show. Man, you've got a background and you've done all kinds of business things, which a lot of people in my audience, I'm sure, is going to love your entrepreneurial spirit and dream. Where'd that come from?
You know, it's something that started out as a young age. Actually, when I was in high school, I was working at Dairy Queen, and I became an assistant manager while in high school, and I was trying to get the owner to buy another one and let me run it for him and maybe even go in at partners at 17, 18 years old. I knew I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know where that journey was going to take me. And, obviously I found my soulmate and my wife, who also had a similar dream. And, we started off with the daycare, which was obviously our first big jump of many.
Yeah, Joe, you have the propensity to take risks that a lot of other people, they just don't have. Like you pouring everything into the daycare business, that's incredible. And then just up and quitting a corporate job and starting a lawn care company. Like where did that gumption come from? Like, how does an investor go from I'm thinking about investing into real estate to actually pulling the trigger? How did you make those decisions? So it seems definitively.
Yeah, and something I didn't tell you. One of the reasons why what really made me pull the trigger to leave the corporate retail, and 15 years of corporate retail, I spent some with Lowe's and a lot with Sears, is April Fool's Day in 2013. I was home from work, taking conference calls. My kids were off of school, and I'm sitting in the window. I'm on the phone with my wife, and my daughters are out in the front yard. We're in a suburban subdivision in Wentzville at the time. And my daughter's 5, and the mailman's coming up the street. And our mailman at that time, she gives away candy, things like that. And, the mailman was waving my daughter to wait till she comes around the other side. And all of a sudden, the mailman looks down to look at her mail, and my daughter drops her scooter and runs across the street right in front. And the mailman, believe it or not, actually ran her over. I watched her go underneath the mail truck. The tire, thankfully, only went up and over her leg and her pelvis. That was a life-changing moment. And at that moment, we thought everything was great. I was making 6 figures. I was in corporate retail. I was traveling all over, and I knew we were missing out, and some things had to change. And that was the day that God said, you know what? Today's the day that changes. And my daughter made a full recovery. We had an ambulance come get her and broke her pelvis, and very, very thankful. She definitely had a guardian angel that day. But that was the day that God said, you know what, you guys need to reevaluate what's important in life. And I literally put my 2-week notice in a few days later and started cutting grass for a living right away.
Yeah, the story's tragic, Joe, but I think that it does bring to light something very important for everybody, which is you got to know where your priorities are. You got to know what's important to you, and you got to know what matters. And when you know those things, I think it makes it a little bit different. It's no longer as much of a risk as much as it is a necessity to pursue what it is that's most important to us in life.
Yep, for sure.
Joe, in pursuing things that are important for us, one of the challenges that people will have is investing in their rental property and doing an analysis on that rental property. And the major challenge is that they do a poor analysis. They don't do the right analysis or know the right things to look for in purchasing a rental property. Now, I can talk all day about purchasing small multifamily rentals and what to look for, but you're an expert when it comes to these vacation rentals. How do you know? I mean, you bought that, you took all of your savings again and poured it into the investment in Panama City. How did you know that was going to be a good investment for you?
There is so much amazing data out there, and it's not the free data; it's the paid data. So you can go to websites like Data Rabu and AirDNA, and these different websites like that, and you can just punch in an address, and it'll tell you their estimated income for that house. And there are so many investors today that are making the mistake by they just do that, and that's it. And they punch in that calculator and says, oh, this house will do $70,000 a year, and they say, oh, great, that's what it says. But you can actually do paid data, which might cost you $100 or maybe cost you $200, whatever it may be. But when you're getting ready to invest tens of thousands of dollars into a real estate investment, what's a couple $100 to get real paid data? And there's great programs, and even AirDNA has a paid program where you can narrow down to the house and actually look at what the houses in your neighborhood are exactly doing or really close to what their exact revenues are. Then you can look at their listings and say, okay, what amenities are these houses offering that these houses are not? And what kind of views do they have? And do they have a pool? And do they have stuff like that? And actually about a year and a half ago, a guy named Kenny Bedwell created a new data point called STR Insights. Write that down, because it is by far the best short-term rental retail real estate investing tool that I have seen so far. He has so much data on there that you are going to find a market and find an area to make a great decision on your real estate investment by using that tool. I live by it. I use it with all of my, not only the ones that I want to buy, but also the in my training program, as well as in my co-hosting. It just has so much real data that it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, understanding the data is incredibly important in making a decision to purchase a short-term rental or long-term rental, whatever you're going to do. When you're looking at data and you're looking at property, what are some different key markers that you're looking at as you're going through the data? I know you said like the view and the pool. What are some other things that somebody who's going to get into this short-term rental business should consider?
Bedroom count. Honestly, it's probably the number one thing that's missed, because a lot of people talk about how short-term rental markets are saturated, and they might be saturated on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and there might be 3,000 listings on that. And the 3-bedroom, 2-baths might sleep 8 to 10 people. You might be really have a lot of competition, but the data might tell you that a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom or maybe even a 2-bedroom is the better investment. And the data points like STR Insights, it'll actually tell you how many bedroom counts and what kind of revenue those are doing. And then taking that data and running a solid pro forma. And I'm sure if you're a real estate investor, you know what running a pro forma is. You have got to run a good, better, best pro forma on every single investment that you do. You got to take the data, and then you got to put those numbers on paper to make sure that actually financially makes sense for you.
Yeah, one of the mistakes that a lot of investors will make, especially according even to the research, like if you pull the research, you'll see that this Turner Center for Housing Innovation report came up, and they said owners of nearly a fifth of the properties experiencing cash flow problems, so that's 1 out of 5 properties that are currently experiencing cash flow problems, they postponed maintenance that was required to take care of the property. They probably postponed that maintenance, Joe, I would imagine, because they didn't run a proper pro forma on the property. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, they don't have the additional cash flow coming in, so now they're having to take money out of their pocket to invest in their property, and they don't want to do that, which is going to continue to make the property decline.
How important is maintenance in the short-term rental business? In long-term rental, it's important. It's not the primary focus that a lot of investors have. But in short-term rentals, there's a lot more work and management involved in that. How important is the maintenance aspect of the property?
It's obviously extremely important because you need your house to be 5-star standard every single time a guest checks in. You know, today I have a house that has a turnover that's on the beach, and the door handle came loose. And when my cleaner goes there to turn over the house, my handyman's going to stop by and tighten up the door handle and, you know, just make sure that it's okay. The pool light burnt out last night, so we're getting a new pool light installed today. And that's just stuff that has to happen. And that's some of the daily management tasks that have to happen. The great advantage, though, is that the wear and tear on your house is a lot less, because in short-term rentals, your guest is signed a rental agreement, and if they damage your property, whether it be damaged a door or a wall or a flooring or whatever it may be, or a TV, they actually pay for it. Right? They've agreed in your rental agreement that they're going to cover those costs. So you can actually go to, whether you're going through Airbnb, VRBO, or you have your own insurance program, and actually have that guest pay for it. That way it's not coming out of your pocket.
Yeah, so that's incredibly important. You said something about insurance, and I want to take a second to thank our second sponsor of the show, Joe, while we got the time and we're talking about insurance. If you need insurance to cover your rental property, let Web Insurance be your guide. They can review your coverages and make sure that you have the correct policies in place at the most affordable prices. And what their clients love about them is that each year they proactively shop your insurance because they're a brokerage for the most truly affordable carrier at appropriate coverages. From contractor to real estate investor, if you receive your income via 1099, let Web Insurance be your guide. Head on over to www.webinsurance.com and get a quote from them. Now back to Joe. Joe, I appreciate what you said about the maintenance guy headed over to the property to fix the door handle and how you have to be 5 stars and why that's so important. Can you describe a little bit about the industry just in general? Because a lot of my audience is going to be people who are either small multifamily real estate investors, or they have a portfolio of rental homes, or they're thinking about getting into real estate investing. Can you describe the differences in that kind of 5-star level service of some things that you can do to really stand out and make yourself different in the short-term rental business?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the number one thing is design, and, there's obviously been a huge influx of short-term rentals over the last 5 years, especially since after COVID. It was a boom, right? Everybody could do it. And back in 2000 and 2021, when everybody was ready to get out of the house, you could put a cardboard box on the road and put it on Airbnb and it would probably rent, right? I mean, it was, there just wasn't enough supply for the demand at that time. Now there's obviously enough supply. So now you have to stand out, right? So you can't just go buy some used furniture on Marketplace and throw it in a house and hope that you're going to be successful. You got to have murals and accent walls and semi-luxury furniture. That doesn't mean you got to go shop, on the top of the line sites. We still buy a lot of the stuff when we design properties on Amazon and Wayfair and stuff like that. But you can't buy a used couch, that is semi-dirty and throw it in a house and going to be successful. Our guests, they have high expectations, and they come in and they're on vacation, right? I mean, they're spending their hard-earned money. The majority of people get to take one vacation a year. So they're spending their hard-earned money at your place for that 1 week, and they want to have a great experience. So it's important to have that ready for them.
So Amazon, Wayfair is ways, murals. You also talked about accent walls. Any other kind of, before we move off of this point, any other specific tips that really make a house stand out or a vacation rental stand out to people whenever they're looking for vacation rentals?
Yeah, I mean, comfort and quality is a big part of it, and then amenities, and a lot of your investors on here may have long-term rentals in suburban areas, and there's been a huge influx of suburban short-term rentals. And you might think, why is the St. Peter's house, do well when there's so many hotels? Well, my friends who have short-term rentals in St. Peter's, Missouri, have game rooms and video games, and they have outdoor amenities and cornhole boards and stuff like that. So, when a family's coming in town for a week, whether they're to tour St. Louis, or they're just here for a baseball tournament, for a week, those are the kind of people that are renting the suburban home type Airbnbs. Those type of amenities is what's going to make your house stand out over the others.
So amenities are extremely important. for short-term rentals. However, I did see this report that returns are down for institutional investors. In fact, in this report that I saw, they said that there's a case for people to purchase right now from an institutional perspective, from small private family offices that are moving to an institutional buyer. There's a case for small multifamily rentals. And they said in this report that the institutional buyers have moved from being net buyers to net sellers in single family home residence. So when you were talking about your friend that has the home that has the game room and the cornhole and all of that kind of stuff in St. Peters, Missouri, you're speaking the language of what people can do in some areas. Maybe if they do have a struggling single family home portfolio, maybe seriously consider this short-term rental option is a option to be able to fix some of the cash flow issues that are going on with inside that property. How do you feel about this shift that's happened? I'm sure you've watched it happen in the markets and stuff, moving from the landscaping industry into real estate and seeing these institutional investors start to bail on some of the single family home stuff they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, the cap rates are tough on long-term investments. You might be cash flowing $100 to $200 a month, on a single family home if you're lucky. And when that tenant moves out after a year or 2 years and you got to go in and rip out flooring or put in new countertops, every bit of your profit plus money out of your pocket probably went right back into that house to get it ready for the next tenant. And then you got to figure out how you're going to, get it rented again. So, a lot of investors have shifted their long-term single-family homes or even some multifamily properties into short-term and even mid-term rentals, which is something to discuss as well. And they've seen their cash flow double, triple, or like you even said, some have even quadrupled. I've seen homes that were getting $2,000 a month, that are bringing in about $24,000 a year in rent, get $70,000 to $80,000 in short-term rents from the exact same house.
If I was the right kind of graphic designer in the post show of this, I would have all kinds of bubbles and pop-ups that just can't go from $24,000 to $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Guys, are you hearing this? Like, we're talking with Joe Rohne. He's an expert in this vacation rental, short-term rental space. And I'm extremely excited to have him here because this is a part of business that I think a lot of you guys might be interested in. You're just not pulling the trigger, and there's something that's holding you back. I don't know if it's a fear from getting into short-term rentals. I don't know if it's just this, you don't know how to do it properly. That's why I brought the expert on the show for you guys today, so you can learn directly from him and hear all about how he manages these vacation rentals. And speaking of managing vacation rentals, Joe, these are not like short-term rentals where you just collect the rent month after month and the tenant stays for 3 to 5 years and everybody's happy and there's not really much to do. These are pretty intensive. Can you talk before I know that I want to get into the benefits of short-term rental, but I just want to put a word of caution out there. If you think this is going to be passive income, it's not. Can you speak a little bit to that and the intensity of work that goes into managing a short-term rental?
Yeah, and honestly, it can still be very passive in a way. I can tell you that the majority of people that self-manage a short-term rental can automate enough to where they're spending 1 to 2 hours total a week in the business, right? So per property, which is not a lot of time, but in a long-term rental, you're probably spending less time than that in there. So there is going to be more, a little bit more labor intensive in there. But there are so many apps and tools. I mean, I have 9 messages that go out to my guests from the day they book till a week after they depart that are automatic messages. I don't touch it. It automatically goes. It sends them their digital guidebook. It sends them their check-in instructions. It creates their door code. All of that stuff's already set up. I don't touch any of that anymore. And that's for every single property. That being said, it's really important to, to make sure you have, all those automations set up. Or you can, if you don't want to do that, you can hire a co-host, similar to hiring a property manager that may charge 10%. A co-host might be 15 to 20%, but when your income is double or triple, it may be worth it to have someone like that do it.
Yeah. Interesting. So how did you learn these automations? Like, where did that process come from? Because, I mean, that's like you've been doing it for 15, 20 years, and now you can finally automate because you know what worked? Like, how did you learn that so fast?
Honestly, there's a lot of Facebook groups and forums. Read a few books. There's a lot of books on short-term rentals, and then some of it was trial and error. Like you said at the beginning of the show, I joined Bill Faith's accelerator program, which was a life-changing. It was the first time I ever invested thousands of dollars in myself and said, I need someone to be able to help me to become an expert. I didn't want to be average. I wanted to be the best. So I went to the best in the industry and I said, what can we do? And he had a great program. I joined it and it was life-changing for me. So, I wanted to become the best of the best and learn as much as I can. So some of it's in books, there's property management systems. There's probably 80 of them, that you can choose. I just chose the one that fits what I need the best.
You said something, and I had a different direction I wanted to go, but I need to ask this question. What took you so long to make the decision to invest in yourself? Why did it take you, 30 plus years to make that decision to pull the trigger to buy into a program like that versus doing it 10 years sooner?
Honestly, I thought we were doing just fine, just us. My wife and I have built some great businesses and we're doing great. But man, I cannot tell you, since investing in that program, investing in the Builders Authority Mastermind now, and investing in my own mastermind and having my own people, being in the room with other people that are like-minded it's a game changer, right? I mean, and I tell the people in my mastermind all the time, like, you can't have these conversations about your business with your brother or your sister or your buddy that you go out with to go play cornhole or whatever it may be. I love every single one of them, but they're not in this business. They can't help me grow this business, right? You need to have somebody that's in the business that you're in, or that's in the same mindset, that's going to elevate you to that next level. And I wish I would have done it decades ago. We'd have a completely different life now, which has been extraordinary as it is. But man, I will continue to invest in myself in the future.
That is, I think, if we had one point, guys, that you could take away today that would make a significant improvement in your life, your lifestyle, your family, the direction you have, the dreams you have, it would be find your group, find your tribe, find your whatever, and invest in the mastermind groups to get around the people who can help facilitate that dream and accelerate your learning faster. I think that you can learn it on your own. You can go read 50, 60, 200 books, 300 books, and still not be at the level of the people who are already in the mastermind groups. And so if short-term rentals is the direction you want to go, you want to triple your rental income. I'm going to tell you, you guys know me. I'm not afraid to sell if we need to sell something, but there is an opportunity at the end of this. I'm going to introduce you to Joe's mastermind group. You might really sincerely consider taking 10, 15, 20 years off of your learning curve and do the thing you want to do sooner. All right. But before we do that, Joe, I got to take a second and thank our second sponsor for the show, which is our third sponsor now, BBC Global Services. So if you are looking for a virtual assistant, somebody to help out with that back office management, learning how to automate things, sometimes not all of your systems that you have access to have automated softwares. So you have to have somebody manually send your emails, somebody manually call your people, somebody manually follow up with those things. If you need help in your business at all, somebody to do back office, and you need a virtual assistant, BBC Global Services is your company. They're outsourcing that helps people like you focus on your superpowers so that you can do the things that you do best. They're simple and on your terms with no term limits. We use them at Red Maple, so we endorse them on our show. Go to bbcglobalservices.com and speak with somebody about virtual assistant services. All right. So back to what we were talking about, Joe. There is a difference between traditional property management and co-hosting. We had mentioned co-hosting a couple of times on the show so far, and I wanted to make sure we provided some clarification to all of the people listening and watching. What is the difference between a traditional property manager and a co-host?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? It doesn't matter when it was. If you owned a vacation rental, whether it be a condo at the beach or a cabin in Branson or, somewhere in Pigeon Forge, it didn't matter where it was. For you to have that rented out, you had to hire a local property manager, right? We didn't have the technology that we have today. And a local property manager, your house might be one of 100 or one of 200 or one of 1,000 if you're one of the big companies, right? And it's just got a number on it, and they put it on the website and they hope for the best. And a traditional property manager they collect all the money for you, they handle all the taxes for you, they do everything, and they take everything in, and at the end of the month they write a check to give you whatever's left over. And that might be enough to make your mortgage payment, or it may not. They don't care, right? They're just going to give you whatever they got left. In the co-hosting field, we do things a little bit different. At least for me, not every co-host is the same. Everybody does things a little bit different. But with technology today, I can manage a property anywhere in the world from my home here in St. Louis, right? So I can manage properties in California, in Florida, or I have someone in my mastermind that lives in San Diego, and she's managing a property now in Tulum, Mexico, right? Through the co-hosting space. So that being said, you got to have boots on the ground. You got to have great cleaners. You got to have good handyman. You got to have people that you can call on when there's a problem. But what we do is we can manage them daily like they're our own. So I manage all my properties daily. I go in and do daily listing optimization. Today I was working on my 200-day funnel email marketing campaign to get my guests to come back and rebook. I'm running Facebook ads. I do TikToks. I do Instagram reels. I'm marketing these homes to be able to get them to make more money for them rather than the traditional property manager, right? The biggest difference, though, is all the money, all the listings are in the owner's name, right? So I'm managing it for an owner, but they're collecting all the money. All the money is going to them. And at the end of the month, I give them an invoice for my services, and they write me a check, right? So they're more in control of their finances. They're more in control of seeing the money that's coming in and going out rather than just being kind of blind until the end of the month. And so they really like that. They like being able to see that money flowing into their account. And then, I do help them with taxes. I tell them what they need to go online and pay. So there is a little bit more hands-on for the owner. But I'll give you a quick case study. We just took over a house back on May 1st. Now, we had signed contract earlier in the year, and I just today got their last year data from their previous property manager. And for the month of June last year, their property manager got a traditional big property manager, had 200 plus properties in Panama City Beach. They did a total of $25,300 in the month of June last year. Right now, we're sitting at $37,500 on the books for this one client. So we made them an additional $12,000 in 1 month, in our first full month, honestly, of managing their property. So that's what managing it individually managing it can make a big difference over a traditional PM.
Yeah. So you just brought up a big deal in that you have been able to shift the revenue and increase revenue inside of co-hosting and managing that rental unit. Can you talk a little bit about how you maximize revenue through that active management? What are some things that you're doing to drive additional revenue?
So there's a lot of things. Listing optimization is key. So most property managers have thousands of properties, so they can't go into your listing each day and change the listing title or move pictures around or change listing descriptions, whatever it may be, right? I mean, they have too many properties. So we actually go in every day and into Airbnb and VRBO and make adjustments. And it's all about the algorithms, right? We all know about algorithms in the digital world, and Airbnb algorithms like it when you have an active owner, right? So they increase your search rankings and move you up to the top of the list. So when you go to search for a 5-bedroom, 5-bath home, I want my house to be the first one that comes up, right? I want mine to be the first. Now, is it always the first? No. The goal is for it to be on the first page or the first 2 pages out of 20 pages, right? If your listing is sitting on page 17, think about it when you do a Google search. How often do you go to page 2 when you do a Google search, right? So if your listing's sitting down on page 17, how is it going to get rented out? Are you going to have an empty calendar? And then all of a sudden you get to your date and you have an empty calendar going into summer, and now it's a race to the bottom. Who can have the lowest rates to get those last minute bookings? So, you want to be able to manage that listing data up front. The other tool that I use, and there's different dynamic pricing tools that you can use. I use a tool called Price Labs. It's a lot like airline pricing, right? The prices change every day based on availability, based on occupancy, based on, what your competition's doing. different events. This weekend in Panama City Beach is the Gulf Coast Jam with Jelly Roll and Morgan Wallen and Cody Johnson, right? We jumped our rates up a year ago to $800 a night this weekend at a 2-bedroom property, and we got it, because it was a sought after weekend. We knew it, and Price Labs knew it, and it adjusted our pricing accordingly. That same house may only rent for $99 a night in January, but we just got $800 a night this weekend.
Wow. So maximizing revenues, growing people's vacation rental businesses, $12,000 in just 1 month's time. Like, these are all possibilities when you have a co-host that knows what they're doing in order to be able to help them, help you maximize your revenue as a co-host. And as an owner, imagine learning the techniques, the tools, the ideas, being around people who are like this on a regular basis through your network and your mastermind. Joe, you have, been an advocate of mastermind groups, and you have a mastermind group. Talk a little bit about building your network through masterminds and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I met a bunch of people at the STR Wealth Conference back in January, February of 23. At that time, I was finishing up the accelerator program with Bill Faith. Wanted me to join his mastermind at the time, and financially, I wasn't ready for that kind of a commitment yet. For me to, I just spent $7,500 on a accelerator program, and the mastermind was going to be another $15,000 or whatever it may have been at the time. I don't remember, but I just didn't have the additional funds just yet because we were in startup mode, right? We're starting a new business. So I networked with a lot of people at that conference, met a few people through my accelerator program, and I just called them up individually and said, hey, I'm going to start a mastermind. Let's do biweekly Zoom calls and, to start, and let's help each other grow business. And that's just kind of how it started. And from there, we all are very like-minded. We have a group text that goes around daily. We only have about a dozen people in our group right now, which is kind of small and low key, which is kind of nice. But it is growing, and more people that are coming on are definitely bringing additional value. But every single person in that mastermind has something to bring to the table. I learn just as much from every single one of them as they learn from me. And they have helped me increase my business by tenfold just by being able to be a part of it.
That's incredible. So, Joe, I want to circle back just 1 second, because I do have an outside the box question, and maybe you can answer it for me. So let's say that you had a rental property that was in rural area. It wasn't necessarily in the suburbs, and it wasn't in Panama City. It was out in rural America, Hannibal, Missouri. It's in, the plains of Kansas, whatever, Lee Summit, outside skirts of Lee Summit. Like, it's rural America. But you want to convert this over to a short-term vacation rental. You said midterm rental. There's a difference there. That's not necessarily the show to go into all of that, but maybe it is. How do you maximize the revenue when there's not a huge draw for the vacation spot, or there's not a destination that they're going maybe for work? This is in those outskirts areas, that people are starting to want to convert some of these vacation rentals.
In some of those, it may not make sense, and in some it might, right? Hannibal, Missouri is a great example of an area that it might make sense because they do have lots of festivals. It is a place that people go visit on the weekends. If they don't have hotels or motels for people to stay at when they come to visit family, you could be going after and picking up some of those as well. And some of these markets don't have data points to be able to tell you if it's going to be a good idea or not. And I will say, in some of those rural areas, the second hard part is going to be, how are you going to find your boots on the ground? Who's going to clean, and who's going to be your handyman, right? So I can't say that in every situation that it's going to be a great idea for you to move your long-term rental into a short-term rental, but is there a draw that brings someone there, right? Is there something that's bringing people to the area on the weekends? And then you have to really run your pro forma. Okay, if I only book the weekends and I'm only getting 8 nights a month, if I can get 150 a night for those 8 weekends, okay, maybe that's $1,200 a month. If I was only getting $800 a month long-term, well, it might make sense, right? But if I'm only going to get $900 a month maximum and $800 my long-term rent, you're probably better to keep it as a long-term rental. So I think every single property, you have to run that analysis and look at your competition and look at what your traffic drivers are. What are bringing people into that market to be able to, and then there's a whole different thing there to even to talk about, and that's regulation. There's a lot of towns and cities or HOAs especially that do have regulations against short-term rentals. So, before you just say, I'm going to move my portfolio into short-term rental, there's definitely some back-end research and that, the regulations is a big part of that.
Yeah. And Joe, regulations is something that's, near and dear to my heart, because in property management, at least with long-term rentals, if you don't understand the regulations, you don't understand the laws, you can really get yourself into a trick bag. You can get sued, and you just want to make sure you have all the protections in place. Does co-host offer that same style of protection as a property manager? How does that whole process work?
Well, I mean, as a co-host, we would work with an owner to make sure their property was in an area that doesn't have those short-term regulations. I mean, the last thing we want to do is jump into a place where we're breaking the law, to do that. I personally only co-host in vacation rental markets. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy. There are some people here that co-host right here in the St. Louis area for the suburban or even city properties. Or Lake of the Ozarks, Branson, wherever it may be. So there are people that co-host in those smaller markets, and partnering with them to be able to do that is a good idea, if you don't do it yourself. But again, I also always recommend, if you can self-manage, that's always the best route. If you're able to physically, do the guest messaging and schedule the cleaners and things like that, and you can self-manage, that's always a better solution.
Yeah, especially in intensive management like short-term rentals. I find that to be a good note. However, if you need to learn how to do the short-term management, that's where Joe comes in. That's why I highly encourage you to get involved with Joe, to learn more about Joe, and maybe even join his mastermind group or his coaching program. Joe, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your coaching program, your mastermind groups, and how they can get involved and get in contact with you?
Yeah, so obviously co-hosting, there's a lot that goes involved in co-hosting, and it's not just going to pick up a property and saying, "Hey, I'll co-host for you." It's how do you onboard them? What kind of contracts do you have with them? What kind of insurance do they have to make sure that the property's properly insured? Making sure that obviously all the taxes and that kind of stuff is taken care of. And then it's okay. How do you go out and find these owners that need co-hosts? So what I do is I have a 10-week program. We do weekly calls. I have some recorded video content on how I go out and find these properties that need a co-host. And it's using data points like STR Insights that'll say, and I can look at an area and it, for instance, this house that I just took over, I found that this house is only doing $170,000 a year. And I think it should easily do $250,000 a year. So I found the owners, talked to them, asked them what was wrong with their property manager, what they didn't like or what they did like, and then found a better solution for them. So I teach and train people how to do that, how to go and talk to these owners and show them the differences, the benefits, running pro formas on these properties. We go through, everything A to Z, from day one, learning, creating your LLC or creating your entity, to all the way to, taking a new listing live on Airbnb. We really cover every single aspect of the co-hosting a property. So it's 10-week program initially. After the 10 weeks is over, then you can graduate into my full mastermind program, or mastermind. The mastermind is for people that are already co-hosting, and helping each other grow and build more businesses. The initial 10-week program is geared towards people that have not gotten into the co-hosting field and need some help getting those first couple properties.
So, Joe, you got somebody out there that's watching right now and they're worried about the investment into the program. They're like, I want to do it. I don't know where I'm going to get the money from. When you made your first investment into your first mastermind group coaching program that you participated in, how did you come up with the money? How did you find it? How did you get on board to making that decision?
I mean, we obviously always try to put a little bit of money in the savings, and like I said, we drained our savings to buy that first rental property, or that first beach house. But then it was okay. We need to take a little bit more. We're very fortunate to have some additional funds. If I didn't have those additional funds and I wanted to grow a business and I believed in myself, I would even use a HELOC if I needed to be able to invest in myself at this point, because I believe in it so much now that I wish I would have done it so much longer ago, that I would have grown a lot faster than I did. So investing in yourself and becoming an expert in anything that you do is really, really important. And like I said, my business has grown tenfold easily since that accelerator program. Built a six-figure business that I didn't even know existed before I joined that. I mean, I didn't even know what co-hosting was before that accelerator program. And a year and a half later, I have a six-figure business.
So there you go, guys. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to make the decision to invest in yourself. You got to make the decision to take action. You got to make the decision to participate in the areas of your life that you want to go in and hit those goals that you're trying to achieve. The only way to do that is to get around other people who are like-minded, who can help share and support you on that journey, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Joe on this program. If you need a co-host, you need a coach, you want to participate in the short-term rentals, heck, you just have questions about it, Joe, how do these people get in contact with you? What are some ways that they could reach out to you?
You can, go to the cohostcoach.com. There's a messaging tab that'll be a direct text message to me. You can, shoot me an email at vacationrohnecasa@gmail.com. But, finding me on Facebook is probably the best. Joe Rohne, Rohne. Super easy to find me on Facebook. There is nobody else with my exact name. So all you got to do is type in that name, and that is probably the best way to reach me.
Well, I have to say thank you very much, Joe, for participating in the show today. I appreciate our friendship and our relationship as it continues to grow through the networks and the people that we know. So thank you very much for being a part of everything.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be along. And I did want to bring up one more point real quickly, with some of your multi-unit investors, because I just helped an investor recently as a realtor, and he bought an 11-unit investment. And he, instead of having 11 long-term rentals, he actually switched it to where he's going to have 6 long-term rentals, 3 midterm rentals to go after traveling nurses, and 2 short-term rentals to do Airbnb and VRBO. So it is okay to have a diverse portfolio, even in the same complex as you look at some of your investments. So just having one multi-unit investment could end up, you don't have to turn the whole thing into a short-term rental. You can do a mix, and it's working really, really well for him.
I love that. And maybe we'll have to have you back on the show in the future. Maybe even if we can get that investor to join on and just talk about that entire strategy and how that whole thing shook out and work out. So thanks for participating. Maybe we'll get him back on the show with us.
Yep. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Joe. All right, guys, the spiel, the spiel, the shtick that I have. I have a book that I recently wrote, and it just came out. It's called The Caesar Method. If you're looking for ways to rapidly grow your business with this 6-step strategic approach, you can find my book on Amazon, or simply in the comments, just DM me the word Caesar, and I will send you a link to my website where you get the book significantly cheaper than you could on Amazon. However, I only have a couple hundred, but I have a couple hundred only copies, author copies left that I can distribute through that platform. So if you DM the word Caesar, then I can get you the book cheaper than what you would pay for it on Amazon. So don't have to go to Amazon, just get it through the website. Anyways, appreciate you guys going to get the book and learning all about that. You also know that if you need a full rental portfolio analysis, you need somebody to go through your rental portfolio, determine what your next step should be, what your profitability is, what your leverage is, what your liquidity ratios look like. We do that work at Red Maples, and we do it for free. There's no cost to do this process. And then we provide you with a plan of action and direct you on the steps that you should take in your real estate investing business. And maybe you'll make a determination. Should I sell assets? Should I refinance? Should I add additional property to the portfolio? Should I look at a combination of short-term, long-term rental strategy? All of that type of stuff we can do with a portfolio analysis. Go to red-maples.com/assessment, and we will get the assessment process started for you. And that, Renovation Nation, brings us again to the end of another episode. I'm Nathan Bush, your guide on this journey of real estate business growth. And remember, just like plants need the right air, soil, and care, our minds need the right environment to build a life of purpose, passion, and growth. Don't forget to get your citizenship to Mind Renovation Nation. The way you do that is you follow us by subscribing to the email list. Go to www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe. Then subscribe to the YouTube channel and share the show so that your friends and others can learn all about what we do for real estate business growth every Friday at noon. So join me next time for a little more insights, inspiration, and of course, a bit of that nation building spirit that drives us to create a community united by shared values, purpose, and a commitment to leaving a lasting legacy. Until then, keep building, keep growing, and let's lead more than 25,000 souls to a life of values-based investing. In our journey of Mind Renovation Nation, guys, we're often talking about things like personal growth, ethical leadership, and making impactful choices. Well, all this is a combination of values-based investing, and it's an extension of my philosophy of that values-based investing. It is about being a steward not only of our finances, but of our vision for the future. And so, signing off from the heart of St. Louis, stay blessed, stay inspired, and remember, every day is a day and a chance to renovate your nation. Thanks, guys. Until next time.